A few meters down, a wild sea bream holds in the blue and watches two divers drop toward it. The two do not match. Different fins, different masks, different wetsuits. One of them matters to this fish. For days, following that diver has ended the same way, a swim into open water and shrimp at the far end. The other leads nowhere, so the fish picks the one that pays and goes. Then the divers change. Same two people, same swim. This time their gear matches. Same fins, same masks, same wetsuits. The fish had learned to follow one of them. The question is what it had learned to follow. These fish did not start out following anyone. Before any of this, no sea bream at the site followed a diver anywhere. Divers came and went, and the fish held in the current, fed and ignored them. That changed slowly. Over 12 days and 23 dives, one diver taught them. Settle in one spot, hand out shrimp, then swim a route of about 50 meters and feed whoever came along at the end. At the start, there were extra props to lean on. A diver kneeling on the bottom, a bright vest, a mesh bag of food. One by one, those extras were taken away, and following that same diver still led to shrimp. Do it enough times, and the swim starts to mean something. By the end, a small crowd would peel off the reef and follow. Then came the real test. Two divers now, hovering side by side for 3 minutes before they moved. One was the payer, one was not, though both carried food sealed out of sight. Then they split, swimming off in different directions, each to a point about 50 meters from where they started. Which way each diver went was shuffled from trial to trial, and the two endpoints were used evenly. To reach the shrimp, a fish had to commit. Pick a diver, leave the other, and stay with that choice all the way to the end. 30 of these trials run over 5 days, and the fish chose. Not perfectly, not every time, but as a group they drifted toward the diver who paid, more and more as the trials went on. The black bream showed it early. The saddled bream came to it later. Underneath the crowd, the researchers followed the individuals they could tell apart by sight, 6 fish with markings distinct enough to track. 4 of those 6 showed a real preference for the rewarded diver, strong enough to count as more than chance. The other 2 leaned the same way without quite reaching that line. So these fish could do it. When the 2 divers looked different, the fish sorted them out and swam to the one that meant food. But picking the payer does not say which part of the diver they were reading. Each diver was 2 things at once, a person and a very different looking bundle of gear. When a fish chose, which of those was it going by? So the researchers took the look away. Same 2 divers, same reward, same 50-meter swim. This time they dressed alike. Matching wetsuits, matching fins, matching masks, matching buoyancy gear. From a fish's distance, in blue water, the 2 now read as near copies of each other. Then they ran the whole thing again. The same 30 trials, one diver still paying, one still not, and this time the divers no longer looked like 2 different presentations, and the sorting came apart. The black bream, who had picked the payer early and clearly when the gear differed, now showed no group preference the models could detect. The saddled bream held on to a trace of it, a lean toward the payer in the middle stretch of trials, but it did not survive to the end. And of the 6 fish tracked one by one, the 4 who had shown a real preference and the 2 who had leaned toward it, not one kept a preference strong enough to count. The reward had not changed. The shrimp was still there. The swim still ended the same way for followers. What had changed was the outside of the 2 divers, and the clean choice from a short time before came apart. So the thing the fish had been reading lived, for the most part, in what the divers wore and carried. Take that away, make it identical, and most of the signal the fish had been using went with it. The easy conclusion writes itself. It was the wetsuit. Except the experiment cannot say that. Not the wetsuit, not any single piece of it. The 2 divers had not changed one thing between them, they had changed everything at once. Different fins, and different masks, and different buoyancy gear, and different suits, all swapped together, then all matched together. Nothing in the design pulls those apart. The color, the shape, the brightness, one garment against another, the study never isolated any of them. It moved the whole bundle and watched what the bundle did. And there is a deeper problem sitting underneath that one. Through every trial, in both experiments, the same person was always the payer. Reward and person were never crossed. Nobody ever swapped the shrimp to the other diver to see if the fish would follow the reward or follow the face. So the fish learning the look and the fish learning the person, through the look, cannot be told apart here. The design does not separate them. Then there is the matching itself. Identical gear did not make the two humans identical. Bodies differ. One diver is built a little differently from the other, moves a little differently, kicks a little differently. Bubbles rise, sound carries, and scent may travel too. In water, a fish has more to read than color, and matching the suits did not erase any of that. And following is not always a private decision. These are schooling fish. When one peels off toward a diver, others come with it, and some of what looks like an individual choice may be a fish tracking its neighbors rather than the diver at all. The researchers do not think that explains the whole result, but they could not measure how much it added. One identified fish, during the matching gear trials, simply kept choosing the same direction, whichever diver was there, and the two conditions never traded places in time. Different gear always came first, matching gear always came second, so the calendar and the condition are braided together in a way the study could not fully comb out. What the experiment shows is that a bundle of outside features, mostly visual, carried most of what these fish were using to tell the payer from the other diver. What it does not show is a face. It does not show a fish knowing which human was which underneath the gear. It does not show one color or one garment doing the work. And it does not show the fish caring who either person was, in the way we might mean that word. A few meters down, the fish holds in the blue and watches two divers. This time they match. To that fish, in that moment, are you just your wetsuit? No, and not the other thing you might expect either. It was not a single garment. And whether the fish could tell the person underneath, the experiment cannot say, because the shrimp never changed hands from the one diver to the other. What it had learned to follow was the outside of a diver, the whole look the water shows, and most of that look was carried by the gear. Match the gear across two people, and most of what the fish had to go on was gone. That is a real thing to have learned. Wild fish, no tank, no training rig, just a reef and a routine, came to pick one diver out of two and follow the one that fed them. Nobody taught them in a lab. They worked it out in open water. That much holds. What does not stretch past the data is everything larger. This was one site, one summer, two species, two divers, and a game about food. And these were not fish meeting people for the first time. Divers visit this reef often, so they were likely used to humans already, though no one measured what any single fish had seen before. The crowd that followed was never a fixed set either. Attendance rose and fell day to day, and no one can say exactly how many individual fish learned the trick. 6 of them were clear enough to track, 1 saddled bream and 5 black bream, and those 6 were the ones the individual results came from. No other team study has come to match it yet. So the finding is not that fish know us. It is that these fish, here, learned to read the version of a person that the water actually shows them, and leaned on it heavily, and lost most of their edge the moment two people wore it in common, which points straight at the next question. Whatever the fish leaned on, it came from a whole diver in the water, close, moving, gear and all, seen from every side. Strip that down, flatten it, take a person a familiar animal already knows, and hand it nothing but a still, flat picture of a face. Is there anything left to recognize? Can sheep pick their handler from a photograph?